Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here. Before I begin with some general comments and talk about the subject, I must say that I've been on the phone and in touch with colleagues in Haiti all morning and really most of the night. I chair the largest microfinance organization in Haiti called FONCOSE. And I tell you, you read the tragedies in Haiti and you see them on TV. But there are also some stories of incredible courage and overcoming odds and major achievements in bringing that country together. And you won't see it much in the media, but they're very real, and it's about people making a difference there, even under the worst circumstances. I think, just turning to this conference, I think this conference is a terrific idea. I was so excited to be invited and be included. The idea of putting people, you all in charge, and individuals making a difference is a subject we don't hear enough about. So I want to congratulate the organizers and all of you who've come. Basically, if you think about it, we're told in so many ways as we grow up that it's difficult to change society for the better. And when it does change, it changes because our leaders make decisions. It changes because of some technological innovation. Someone writes a new part of computer code, and society advances. And you and I, are kind of passive in that change process. But in reality, what my 21 years working in social change has told me is that real change usually comes when individuals, a large and growing group of individuals, think that they themselves can be a change maker. They themselves can address the societal problems. They empower themselves. And it usually starts with one person who tells another person and starts something large. And that's been my own story and the story of microfinance. So if I had a goal in this session today, is it to make you think that Mohammed Yunus of Grameen Bank or myself is a social entrepreneur? That'd be nice. Would it be so that you all give me good scores in the scoring and give me many awesome markings and maybe not so many annoying markings on your ratings? That would be nice. But also, I really hope that even just 4 or 5 of you, if you're inspired to say, I want to be a change maker, I want to identify a societal problem and then find or invent a solution and champion it with all of my heart and all of my talent. Wow, that would be I see this as a big success for me. Microfinance, that you've probably heard of, is a classic story of self-empowerment for change, from the grassroots up. I was in Bangladesh last month, 21 years after I first went there. And this society is so different, so much more confident than it was when I first arrived in 1988. And microfinance, a grassroots economic strategy, has been a huge part of that. Economic change, where the experts tell us, come because of macroeconomic policies that are correct, that are changed for the better. Billions of dollars shifted from unproductive uses to productive uses. Doubtless that has a role, but those models put elites and leaders in charge of economic development. Professor Yunus, and a little bit of a role for entrepreneurs, for the business leaders themselves, but most of us are just kind of pawns in the process, in that model. The model that I'm familiar with, that Mohammed Yunus and the Grameen Bank developed, actually puts a poor woman, illiterate woman without a benefit of education, at the center of developing a society's economy. With a $50 loan or a $100 loan, she begins a process of self-empowerment, self-discovery, and begins to shift the direction of her life and her family and her community. And those changes, aggregated over hundreds and then thousands and then millions, has a capacity to change an entire society, where and to do it in a business-like way, where we're drawing from the discipline of business and the social sector, which is really what social entrepreneurship is all about, in my mind. Now, we're given many messages also to believe if you have low human capital, if you don't have education, then you won't be able to, you're not a change agent, especially you. And yet, in fact, you're someone that society needs to help and reach out to. So when Grameen Bank loan officers, and I repeated this myself when I went there 21 years ago, their first assignment is to do a biography of a poor woman who changed her life with a loan of usually starting with $50 or $100 to start a tiny business, raise goats, or have a little shop, convenience store. Because we're brought up to believe that's not possible, that they're not as able as we think they are. And in fact, you cannot become a loan officer unless you've completed a high-quality short biography of a poor woman and been able to document for yourself what she is capable of. So that's the essence of microfinance. And a book that I wrote called Small Loans, Big Dreams, I spent several years in one village documenting this process. I had to learn the language, Bengali, and I was never a really good language student, but I had to learn. And it was a fascinating process to see how you can, with loans and other support, change a society based on economic self-empowerment of the most marginalized people. And these aren't just stories. There have been more than 90 research studies on what happens when a microfinance is available to a poor woman. In fact, we summarized the conclusions of those studies in a report that's on our website, and for free you can download it and read it yourself. But what we found is that the income, the assets, the educational attainment of that woman's children, and the nutritional status, for most of them, goes in a slow upward direction once they're able to access resources to engage in a business venture that they weren't able to previously, or they did in a much smaller scale. What's also interesting is that one study looked at the issue of the empowerment of women. Once they're involved in microfinance, do they feel more and do they have a more active role in their families' decision-making and in their communities? Well, this study showed that if you were part of microfinance for 5 years, you were 7.5 times more likely to be empowered, to be a part of that decision-making process, the decisions that affected your life. What was also interesting is they did a study of 7.5 times more than if you were not in microfinance and in a village where there was no microfinance going on at all. What was interesting is they also did a study of women who did not participate in microfinance, but were in a village where other women did. And they found that they were 2.5 times more likely to be empowered than a woman in another village where microfinance wasn't even present. So empowerment and the ability to feel self-empowered, to take things into your own hands, it's somehow contagious. That's good news. That's very good news. And I think that would extend beyond the economic and social arena. Let me tell you about my own journey briefly. I was in university 25 years ago. I was trying to figure out all of the problems of the world, and naturally, being the US, I was doing that fed by ample amounts of beer and pizza. That is the fuel of all the good and bad that happens at universities in my day. And someone said something to me that struck. They said, every major problem in the world has been solved somewhere. There are no unsolved big problems. But the problems continue because the solutions are small scale, the problems are big scale. So I began to think, maybe what my calling was to find a small scale solution to a big problem and be its champion. So I heard I thought poverty was a big problem. I heard Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh, this professor, was doing something very promising in one country. So I wrote him a letter. And with all the enthusiasm of youth, I told him that I had figured out how to defeat world poverty. I wanted him to join my team. And I wrote the Yunus COUNTS plan to eradicate world poverty. And it was to take his model from Bangladesh